Here to discuss live at the desk, professional capital management founder and CEO Anthony Pompliano, Breitbart economics and finance editor John Carney. John, looking at those markets, obviously the markets, I think, were just caught off guard by the way it was rolled out and the numbers that were thrown out. Because again, and this is Steve Moore's Committee to Unleash Prosperity, said these tariffs aren't reciprocal, that because they're calculated based on the concept that the trade deficit is the sum of all the unfair trade practices, the sum of all cheating. And he said, you know, poorer, smaller nations, of course, are going to have a giant trade deficit like Vietnam. And so you're really punishing these smaller countries the most. But how do you see it different?
So, yes, the people underestimated how high the tariffs were going to go. I think a lot of people had built into their investment thesis the idea that they were scaring the markets about the tariffs and that they were going to come in with something weaker so that you would get a rally. Trump didn't go that way, and we're seeing right now that he's saying he doesn't care what the market's doing. He expected it to go down. He's willing to take that. The idea that Trump is scared of the markets should be once and for all done with. Nobody should. He's willing to take this downturn. But I do think that the complaint about how they calculate the reciprocal tariffs is a little bit disingenuous, because when they first announced it, the critics said, you can't calculate it the way you're saying. It's not possible to add up all of the tariffs different countries have and come up with a number that you're going to tariff that country. So then they said, okay, well, if it's not possible, let's do it another way. A way that Oren Cass has talked about for months now is the right way to do it. And when they reveal that, yes, this is how we did it in this way, they said, why didn't you do it in the way we told you was impossible? They were going to come out no matter what.
That's not necessarily a substantive defense of how they did it, though.
Well, I will say that unless somebody can show me a better proxy, we need tariffs. We need to set the world's trading on a better path. You go with the tools you have, not the ones that people wish you did. Unless somebody can show me a better proxy for calculating the tariff rates, and if they can, we might be able to adopt that. They should go call up Jamison Greer and say, hey, guys, I got a better formula. I don't think that formula is going to produce tariffs that are a lot different than the ones we see on that chart, because, frankly, the presumption that if you run a persistent large trade deficit or trade surplus against the U.S. and we have a trade deficit with you, that you have trade barriers is correct. This is not an accident. This isn't something that happens just naturally in an economy. If you have a persistent large trade deficit, then somebody has a trade barrier against you.
Does it get worse before it gets better, whether you're talking about the markets, whether you're talking about the economy?
Well, I think, first of all, you got to not get bogged down in what the critics want you to get kind of tied up in. And a big piece of this is...
Like those jackasses we just showed.
Well, what they want is they want to sit there and they want to go ahead and they want to debate all this math with you, right? But it's like kind of having a store. And if you have a store and people are coming in to buy things, how do you determine what the prices are? You may determine it one way, another store may determine it another way. But ultimately, when the customer comes into the store, the price is the price. Either you pay the price or you don't. You can't sit there and actually negotiate and say, well, I don't like how you calculated what the price is going to be. And so that's the same thing with the tariffs. The price is the price. Either people are going to pay it or they're not going to, and they're going to go somewhere else. And so I think that the market right now is trying to understand what exactly is going to happen because of these tariffs. And there's been a massive disservice. The problem that we're seeing in the market is actually because the American education system is so atrocious that we have had economic professors in this country teach people tariffs are inflationary, which they are not. They have taught them that tariffs will actually hurt the economy, which they will not. And they also will tell people that these tariffs are going to actually be a tax on the consumer. But what we see is, take Walmart as an example. Walmart went to their suppliers already and they said, guess what? You have a tariff on your country now. You are not going to raise the prices for the products that we're buying from you. You're going to eat that cost because we're going to squeeze your margin, not to our consumer. And so all of a sudden, those tariffs, how are they inflationary if Walmart is refusing to pass that on to their customer? And so if you then go and you take a look at the inflation, we have now been, 2 months into Trump's presidency, and he's been talking about tariffs. That's pretty much all he's been talking about for months now. Inflation has been crashing. And so if you go and you look at something like Truflation, over 3% in December in that inflation metric in real time. Now it's under 1.4%. And so actually the Fed is sitting there looking at a government data point that's completely wrong. Scott Bessent has come out and said he doesn't believe the economic data. And so the Fed should be cutting rates, and we should be much more worried about an economic slowdown rather than an economic acceleration with inflation.
So as other countries face the choice of negotiating or retaliating, moments ago, President Trump spoke to the potential to strike some deals here. Let's listen.
Are you open to deals with these countries if they're calling you?
Well, it depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good. For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well in the first administration, as you saw, but now we're taking it to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation. And it's very exciting to see.
So, John, he's saying, well, maybe we'll negotiate. Isn't the point of this to get people to come and negotiate a more favorable situation with the United States? Because, like the Israelis, for example, the reports are they're just shocked today because they did what they thought Trump wanted. They dropped their tariff to zero, and then he imposed a new tariff on them anyway. I think there are just some people whose heads are spinning, not because they hate Trump, they just don't understand what they're supposed to do.
So first of all, I do think that actually the way they calculated it is a pretty good way of calculating what people's non-tariff barriers are. That if they are running persistent trade deficits or trade surpluses against us, and we're running a trade deficit against them, if they lower their trade barriers, that deficit should go down. We should not have the same side deficit. Otherwise, their trade barriers aren't doing anything. So Israel, for instance, I imagine that they will actually start buying more U.S. goods now that they have lowered their tariffs. That will have the function of bringing down the tariff rate that is assigned.
I think
to
they just
them
got
in
the
that
10,
chart.
though. They just got the 10, right?
Well,
The
10. So everybody who got 10 is just getting 10. Right, that is call it the cover charge to enter the U.S. market. You have to pay that.
Why?
Why not?
That's not reciprocal.
No, why not? We have one of the most.
Well, hang on. How is that reciprocal? If someone's at zero and you put 10 on them,
those
that's
are not reciprocal tariffs. You are correct. That is why I called it the cover charge to enter the U.S. market. There is a reciprocal tariff. That is the number that goes up because of your trade barriers. The entry fee to come into one of the most valuable resources in the entire world that we have been giving away for free is the 10%.
But the thing about that is that 10% got slapped on countries that have a trading surplus with the U.S. They buy more from the more from the United States than they sell into the United States. Great Britain, Australia, that's one of the things that didn't make sense. We're so focused on this is the goods trading that Trump is focusing on. But where we could get slapped in the face by all of these other nations is in services. And that is the root of our economy. And we export $1 trillion in services every year, whether it's engineering, technology. Is that a worry?
Well, I think the big thing that Trump is trying to accomplish here, right? Let's remember what the goal is. It's not just to raise government revenue. It's to raise government revenue and drop taxes for the working class. And so ultimately, how did we do that? We used to be a country that depended on tariff. That was 100% of the government revenue. We had a 5% tariff on all imports into the U.S. The Coast Guard was literally created to collect that tariff, right? That is how our country was built. Over time, we put the tariffs down to zero. Income tax exploded. And now there's some people in our country that pay more than 50%. I always joke that some people in our country don't start working for themselves until July every year. And so if you go and you look at this tariff program, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, if you want to access the American market, you've got to pay. Now, what I do think is really interesting is he is transitioning us from a punitive tariff program where we go and we punish countries for things that they do to a tariff incentive system. And so if you put that 10% tax on every single import, now what he's going to do is he's going to say, what do we need? Avocados and bananas, we're not the best at making those. Why don't we go ahead and we'll drop that tariff to incentivize people to bring it to the country? And so what you end up doing is you're moving from a punitive program to an incentive program. And I actually think that other countries, they're going to show up, they're going to drop their tariffs, but they're also going to have their companies show up and say, listen, I'm willing to negotiate. And so I think we're focused on countries, but what about companies, right? I think that Trump would absolutely love to sit down with CEOs of these large corporations and say, you know what, your country's not playing ball, but I'll strike a special deal with you. I'll actually go ahead and I'll give you a certain deal rather than the country. And I think that's going to be a big deal.
Pompliano, Carney, this is encouraging work, which is great for our economy, and discouraging consumption. Thank you, gentlemen. Only